So I think it's about time we finally discuss some weapons that deserve some extra attention, as today I wanted to talk about some underrated weapons that you should definitely be on the lookout for. Today's list will feature 5 weapons that I have been looking for and that I think you should definitely get as well. We'll be discussing what they are, why they're so underrated, and what perks you should get on them. So with that being said, I'm SniperKH and let's hop into the video. Let's open up with the oldest weapon on this list being the Heliocentric QSC. A lot of you might be looking at me sideways for recommending a sidearm of all weapons, but hear me out because this sidearm is actually really good. This sidearm is a world loot drop, and while that does suck on paper, it ends up being okay as this weapon can be farmed via lost sectors on certain days. I've left a link to a spreadsheet in the description below that gives you a schedule of the loot rotations of the lost sectors every day. As of the time of this video's recording, the next time Heliocentric will be in the Lost Sector daily rewards will be February 2nd, which is this Friday. The loot table will rotate over the span of 4 days, so after the 2nd, it will be back in the loot pool on the 6th. Regarding why this thing is underrated is due to it being a sidearm, and with its main purpose being ad clear, SMGs and hand cannons dominate that job, especially considering the fact that SMGs like Funnel Web, the Aikilos SMG, Callus Mini Tool, and other dominant SMGs reside in this slot, and Sunshot, one of the most popular hand cannons right now, also resides in this slot. However, I truly believe that Heliocentric can do a fantastic job on its own. Regarding perks you should be hunting for, Heal Clip could work great for solar builds, especially with the abundance of solar mods we have this season. Perpetual Motion could be a fairly solid reload perk if you fancy having one on your weapon. And Demolitionist for grenade builds for my recommendations for column 3. For column 4, Incandescent is my go-to here, but if you really don't enjoy Incandescent, then Adrenaline Junkie could be a solid option, especially when paired with Demolitionist, or Frenzy could also work as well, thanks to the small damage boost that it would give you. Otherwise, regardless of what role you get, I promise that if you try this thing out, you will end up enjoying it more than you'd expect. Alright, so now that that is out of the way, the rest of the weapons on this list are new weapons which can be good but also bad, and you'll see what I mean by that as we progress through this video. The next weapon I wanted to talk about is the Indebted Kindness Special Sidearm. This sidearm is one of 2 weapons that can be found in the new sidearm archetype that was released with this season, which fires rockets instead of bullets. Now, regarding why this weapon is underrated, it's for similar reasons as to why the Heliocentric is on this list, but with a few extra things added. On top of that reason, Indebted Kindness is a sidearm that takes special ammo, and while it does pay back by firing rockets that do solid damage, this weapon is usually overshadowed by other ad clear weapons, especially the Forbearance if we are talking about special weapons. However, I still think this weapon is a lot of fun and a nice change in pace for weapons, so I definitely recommend it. If you choose to get this weapon, then you'll want to look for the following roles. In column 3, we have Beacon Rounds, which allows the rockets from this weapon to track targets that you deal damage to, Enlightened Action, or my personal pick, Lead from Gold. And in column 4, I find Voltshot to be the clear winner here. If you decide you want to farm this weapon, then you can do so by running any encounter in the new dungeon, Warlord's Ruin. Although encounters 1 and 3 will be your best bet since encounter 1 is shorter, and easier to farm, whilst encounter 3 has double drops. Regardless of which encounter you farm, I truly believe you might enjoy this weapon a lot. Alright, so if you remember earlier when I said that the rest of the weapons on today's video are newer ones, that it could be bad, well, I say that because the rest of the weapons on today's video are world drops, which means that as of the time of this recording, there is no specific farm for them, other than just playing the game. However, if you find any of these next 3 weapons and you get their god roll, you'll definitely want to hang on to them. For the next spot on today's list, we have the Rose Arigo 4 auto rifle. This auto rifle debuted this season and has some absolutely spectacular perks on it. To explain why this weapon is underrated, it's for the same reason why the Heliocentric from earlier is underrated, with the only difference being that the Rose Arigo is an auto rifle. Other than that, it resides in the same slot, meaning that it has to compete against some of the best SMGs and hand cannons Destiny has to offer right now. But I truly think that this weapon does a great job on its own. The biggest appeal for this weapon, in my opinion, is its access to the reprised Pinnacle weapon perk that debuted on the Breakneck back in 2018, which is Onslaught, which is back this season. In case you don't know what Onslaught does, it increases the rate of fire of this weapon when you get a kill, with this perk maxing out at 3 stacks. Furthermore, the weapon rolls with rewind rounds, which should theoretically let you keep Onslaught going even after the magazine of your weapon is empty. If rewind rounds isn't your cup of tea, then no worries, as this weapon can roll Subsistence, which pairs very well with Onslaught. The god roll for this weapon is on screen now in case you are unaware as to what to look for. If you don't want to mindlessly grind Destiny, hoping for the perfect rose arigo to just fall out of the sky, then this weapon should enter the lost sector loot pool in the final shape, so you can also just wait until then to farm for it. Regardless of when you choose to farm for it, you should definitely get your hands on this thing as it will not disappoint you. Alright, let's now show some love to the weapons that reside in the heavy weapons slot, as the last two weapons on today's list can be found here. We're going to open up with the heavy machine gun that has had my attention since it was released, with that being none other than the marado 45. This LMG has been a weapon that I've been chasing for similar reasons to that of the Rose Arigos has access to, with that being the Onslaught perk being in this weapon's perk pool. Regarding why this weapon is on the list, it's a new LMG that is having to compete against other top tier LMGs that we already have in the game, with the two main ones that come to my mind being Commemoration and Song of Iriud. And while those two LMGs are phenomenal, I think Marado has a really good chance of competing against these two. Regarding what perks to look for, I find Demolitionist to be the only valuable perk in column 3. If you absolutely don't want to use Demolitionist, then you can consider using Threat Detector, although Demolitionist is the clear winner here for me. For column 4, this should come as no surprise since this is the main highlight for me, but Onslaught will be my go-to for column 4. If you do get this roll to drop, then definitely give it a shot because you will not regret it. For the final weapon on today's list, we have none other than the krux Termination 4. You may have heard about this weapon, especially if you follow other Destiny creators on Twitter or YouTube. The reason why this rocket is getting so much attention is thanks to its fantastic perk pool, with each column having 3 to 4 perks that are worthy of using. Regarding why this weapon is underrated in my eyes, this weapon is competing in a weapon category that is dominated by some heavy hitters like Apex Predator and Cold Comfort, both of which are S tier weapons and are arguably the best weapons in the game for DPS. However, what might surprise you is that krux Termination technically has higher damage per rocket than what Apex Predator or Cold Comfort can do, thanks to krux Termination's access to Surrounded, which grants this weapon a 40% damage buff when surrounded by 3 or more enemies. Now, the big downside with this rocket is the fact that it is a world drop, whilst Apex Predator and Cold Comfort have designated drops locations, which makes them easier to farm, but krux also has access to Slide Shot, which allows you to dump rockets out faster than Apex Predator or Cold Comfort can dump out. Regarding krux Termination's perk pool, since I did highlight that, this weapon can roll with Clown Cartridge, Slide Shot, Envious Assassin, or Reconstruction in column 3, and Surrounded in column 4, although Explosive Light and Bipod are not bad options either. If you are able to get this rocket with any of the combination of perks I just mentioned, then I guarantee that you will enjoy this rocket launcher a lot. Well, that'll wrap it up for today's video. If you found it helpful, a like rating would be greatly appreciated, and consider subscribing to my channel for more Destiny 2 content dropping weekly. If you have a topic you'd like for me to cover, then be sure to drop a comment and I'd be glad to do so. Otherwise, follow me on my other social media platforms linked in the description below. With that being said, I'm SniperKH, and I'm out. Good luck with gaming.